Soft rays of early morning sun gently lit the small town of Rosemore, greeting pastel-hued cottages and neatly trimmed lawns with a golden warmth. A hush lay over the place, broken only by the distant caw of crows perched on telephone poles. Rows of stately oaks lined the narrow streets, their leaves gently swaying in the mild breeze. At the far edge of Rosemore, behind a well-worn picket fence, sat a modest nursery, specializing in heritage plants and flowering shrubs. It was there that a young gardener named Lily found her life's meaning among seeds, soil, and blossoms. She rose each day with a determined sparkle in her eyes, eager to bring new life into the world through her work. Lily had always found solace in nature's quiet rhythms. When she was just a small child, she would follow her father into the backyard, watching him coax tiny seedlings to grow tall under the summer sun. Growing older, she fell more in love with the hum of bees and the whisper of leaves. She found it magical how a single seed could grow into something beautiful with the right amount of care and attention. Those childhood experiences guided Lily toward her path. She became the youngest horticulturalist at the local nursery, using her gentle spirit to help townspeople cultivate their own gardens. It was there on a misty morning that Lily first met Henry. He stepped into the nursery, shoulders stooped beneath an invisible weight. Grief was etched into the lines of his face, and his dark eyes carried a deep sorrow. Lily greeted him with a soft smile from behind the potting station, noticing the tremor in his hands as he rested them on the counter. He cleared his throat politely as if to speak, but no words came. The sadness seemed too fraught to allow him even the simplest greeting. Giving him time, Lily patiently waited until Henry finally managed to whisper hello, his voice as fragile as a dried leaf caught in the wind. Henry wasn't sure exactly what he hoped to find in the nursery. Part of him doubted any external change could ease his grief. He was a widower, having lost his beloved wife Margaret just a few months prior. She had been the life force that filled his days with color, especially through her love of roses. Their modest yard used to be brimming with vibrant reds, pinks, and whites, petals covered in morning dew that she would tend with delicate devotion. In the months since her passing, the garden slowly withered until barely any trace of Margaret's roses remained. He had let it happen, too paralyzed by loss to care for a single rosebush. Lily asked gently if she could help him with something in particular. Henry, after a pause, mentioned he wanted to plant roses to remember Margaret. She had once dreamed of a sprawling rose garden, one that would bloom each spring and summer with hopeful new buds. He explained haltingly that her final weeks in the hospital were spent imagining a place where children could play among the flowers, as neighbors came to gather, share tea, and celebrate life. But it was a vision she never got to see fully realized. Henry hoped that creating this garden might preserve some part of her spirit. Her heart moved by his story, Lily offered him a small pot of rose cuttings. They were delicate, fragile, tiny stems with few leaves, yet they bore the promise of growth. Henry gazed at them with a tender expression, as though searching for Margaret in those slender green shoots. Lily quietly explained how each variety needed a different type of care, from the angle of sunlight to the spacing between each plant. She then suggested, with some hesitation, that she could come by and help him prepare the soil and choose the proper place in his yard. Her voice was warm and encouraging, as if sensing that Henry might not have the strength to do it alone. A hesitant nod from Henry set things in motion. Lily smiled, trying to conjure a small spark of hope in him. Over the next afternoon, she gathered tools, a trusty spade, pruning shears, nutrient-rich compost, mulch, and stakes for support. She found the perfect rose varieties for a memorial garden: Queen Elizabeth for gentle pink blooms, Peace for soft cream petals edged with pink, and Crimson Glory for deep red blossoms that spoke of enduring love. Each selection carried a symbolic meaning, a silent testament to compassion, hope, and devotion. When Lily arrived at Henry's home, the modest house and overgrown yard greeted her with a somber hush. She imagined Margaret's presence lingering in the neglected soil and around the wind-blown, empty trellises. The remaining briars twisted forlornly along the fence, as if they were hungry for care but uncertain how to ask for it. Lily took a deep breath, summoning the nurturing energy she always felt when stepping into a garden in need of revival. She went to knock, but Henry had already opened the door, having spotted her from the kitchen window. Silently, they greeted each other. Though no one else could fill Margaret's place in Henry's heart, Lily's company brought the faint shimmer of possibility. They ventured into the backyard. Henry cleared his throat to speak, then paused, examining the neglected rosebed that had once flourished under his late wife's warm, tending hands. She loved this place, he murmured. He gestured toward a bare patch of earth where weeds had overtaken the remnants of Margaret's last rose bush. With a bittersweet smile, he told Lily a story of how Margaret once rescued a tiny sparrow with a broken wing she found among the thorns. As Lily listened, she could almost see Margaret gently cradling the bird, nursing it back to health, then cheering as it soared away. That moment, Henry said, captured Margaret's essence: nurturing, hopeful, and always ready to heal what was broken. Gradually, they began clearing the debris, uprooting stubborn weeds, and turning over the soil. Henry knelt beside Lily, using his spade to break down clumps of dirt. Each movement seemed to carry an emotional weight, unearthing memories with every scoop. Despite the heaviness in his heart, Henry found it comforting to work with his hands, to be out in the fresh air under the soft sunlight. "I haven't touched Margaret's plants since she got sick," he admitted, voice quavering. Lily, sensing his pain, gently explained that gardens, much like people, go through cycles of decay and rebirth. She assured him that while the old rose bushes may have died back, new plants would carry on Margaret's legacy. They spent the afternoon perched on kneeling pads, preparing the soil methodically, loosening it, mixing in compost, and forming well-spaced, generous holes for each new rosebush. Henry confessed that he had nearly given away all his gardening tools because he couldn't bear the reminder of the past. He told Lily about Margaret's laughter echoing in the early mornings while she pruned her prized yellow roses, and how she would hum lullabies to their budding plants as if coaxing them to flourish. Even in describing the sadness, Henry felt a form of healing in telling these stories. Lily, in turn, found herself moved by the depth of devotion that lingered in his voice. When they finished preparing the ground, Lily handed Henry the first rose cutting, Queen Elizabeth, its roots tender and ready for a new home. Gingerly, he placed it into the hole, gently patting soil around its base. Next came the peace rose, followed by the crimson glory. Each plant was carefully spaced, given enough room to stretch its roots and breathe. Lily showed Henry how to stake them for support and mound soil around their bases, creating a cozy nest for the fragile stems. With every deliberate motion, Lily could feel Henry's grief transforming into a cautious sense of purpose. As dusk softened the sky, Lily and Henry stepped back to admire their day's labor. A row of newly planted rose cuttings formed a graceful crescent around the perimeter of the garden, hinting at future brilliance. It was far from finished, but Henry carefully gathered the tools with Lily, storing them away in a small shed near the fence. A gentle breeze feathered across their faces, rustling the leaves of a nearby oak. They parted with an unspoken agreement. Lily would return to help water and tend the garden, step by step, until the small cuttings flourished into velvety blooms. Each following morning, before opening the nursery, Lily visited Henry with a watering can in hand. The sun, still climbing the horizon, cast pale orange rays over the young shoots. She demonstrated composting techniques, pruned away any yellowing leaves, and sprinkled slow-release fertilizer at the roots. Henry watched closely, though he was still riddled with doubts, afraid the garden might fail. Lily reassured him that it took time for roses to adapt to a new environment. Yet, with patience and dedicated watering, tender buds would form. More importantly, Lily observed how tending the garden nudged him a bit forward through his grief, giving him small tasks to anchor him in the present. Over the weeks, Henry began anticipating Lily's visits with cautious hope. He woke early enough to meet her by the garden gate, sometimes with a mug of tea to ward off the crisp morning air. Their conversations deepened. Lily spoke of her own father's passing and how working among plants had guided her through that difficult chapter. The patterns of nature, a seed germinating, a bud unfurling, reminded her of life's cyclical nature. Growth came after dormancy, and brilliance succeeded darkness. Henry listened, a gentle flicker of understanding shadowing his gaze. Their shared gardening tasks became a steady bridge linking two hearts that had known loss. One morning, Henry hesitantly offered to take over watering for a day so Lily could focus on the nursery. His voice wavered with uncertainty, but Lily smiled with quiet joy. It was a marked step forward. He was embracing responsibility again. As Lily handed him the watering can, she explained the correct ratio of water, cautioning not to drench the soil too much or let it dry completely. He nodded carefully, determined to protect these tender rose cuttings. When Lily returned that evening to check on things, she found Henry humming softly near the newly planted roses. The sight made her heart swell, as if she were witnessing the first hint of a bud peeking through a closed bloom. Days stretched into weeks, and the memory garden began its gentle dance of transformation. Tiny leaves unfurled along each slender stem. New shoots appeared like green exclamation marks brimming with life. The Queen Elizabeth rose cuttings displayed blush pink buds, while the peace roses hinted at creamy petals tinted with pink edges. Even the crimson glory was hinting at the deep scarlet blossoms to come. Henry marveled at the subtle changes, joy flickering in his eyes for the first time since losing Margaret. Each leaf was a victory, each new bud a promise. Lily quietly celebrated these milestones, knowing this tangible rebirth reflected a deeper renewal within Henry's spirit. In the evenings, Henry found solace tending the garden alone. Sometimes he spoke to Margaret softly, imagining she could hear his words on the breeze. He told her about the new varieties, how carefully Lily had chosen them, and his hopes that she would have cherished their vibrancy. Neighbors who passed by noticed the transformation. The once lifeless yard now displayed tidy rows of healthy, emerging roses. Their questions led Henry to proudly share that he was creating a memorial. Suggestions trickled in, maybe add a bench, a trellised arch for the climbers, or a bird bath to welcome feathered friends. Each idea spurred Henry's excitement, a testament to life re-entering his world. Finally, one early morning, Lily stepped through the garden gate and stopped, astonished. Before her eyes, the first Queen Elizabeth bloom had opened, its petals like layers of delicate pink silk. Dewdrops shimmered in the early sun, refracting gentle rainbows across the garden. Henry stood quietly beside it, his hands clasped as if in prayer. Tears glistened on his cheeks, but these were not just tears of sadness, they were tinged with awe and gratitude. When he spotted Lily, he beckoned her closer, pointing to the new bloom with a trembling hand. She smiled broadly, placing a hand on Henry's shoulder. Without words, they shared a profound moment of wonder, aware that this small pink rose represented more than just a bloom. It embodied love's resilience. As more blooms unfurled, Henry and Lily sat outside with mismatched chairs they had dragged from Henry's shed, sipping tea amid the scent of rose perfume. One radiant afternoon, Henry revealed an old notebook filled with Margaret's handwritten dreams for the garden, sketches of a rose arbor, and ideas for a small fountain. Lily flipped through the pages, touched by Margaret's artistry and zeal. Together, they decided to carry out her plans. They chose a graceful wrought iron archway and a simple stone fountain to place in the center. Lily volunteered to speak with a local craftsman who specialized in custom garden pieces. Henry beamed, perhaps for the first time in months, brimming with a sense of renewed purpose. The fountain arrived a couple of weeks later, a modest but elegant piece that bubbled softly when water flowed. Installing it wasn't easy, involving meticulous leveling and connecting a pump, but Henry was determined. He and Lily spent a day wrestling it into place, checking water pressure and making sure it nestled harmoniously among the rose bushes. Once the fountain was set, a gentle trickle filled the air, mingling with the rustle of leaves. The result was almost enchanting. Neighbors paused at the fence to admire the transformation, offering thoughtful compliments. Children gazed in wonder, leaning over the picket gate to watch the water dance in the sunlight. For Henry, the fountain became a symbol of hope, its ceaseless flow mirroring his budding desire to live fully again. To complement the fountain, Lily arranged for stone pavers to create a winding path through the roses. The path circled the garden, allowing a leisurely stroll among the blossoming rose. As she laid each piece of stone, Lily quietly marveled at how this entire endeavor had begun with a fragile idea born from Henry's grief. The two of them, strangers not long before, had come together for a purpose much greater than themselves, nurturing life from sorrow. Each newly placed paver felt like another affirmation of life, bridging Henry's past to his future. When the arbor arrived, Lily and Henry carefully hoisted it into place at the entrance of the garden. It was painted in a soft, unobtrusive gray, designed to complement the vibrant colors of the roses. They planned to train climbing roses along the sides, eventually transforming the archway into a living tapestry of blossoms. After weaving together canes of a particularly vigorous climbing variety, Lily stepped back, imagining how the arbor would look in a year's time, draped with vibrant petals. Henry stared too, a gentle smile spreading across his face. He commented that Margaret would have loved to see guests enter through that blossoming gateway. Word spread through Rosemore about the unfolding gateway. Curious townsfolk began to venture over to Henry's house, offering help or simply to admire the progress. An elderly woman donated a small bird feeder in memory of her own husband, hoping it would attract songbirds that Margaret might have appreciated. A local mother donated a wooden bench, hand-painted by her daughter, so visitors could sit and reflect among the flowers. Before long, the once neglected backyard was evolving into a community sanctuary, where the fragrance of blooming roses mingled with the soothing sounds of the fountain and cheery birdsong. The transformation of the garden mirrored a transformation in Henry. While his grief remained, it grew gentler, less overwhelming. He found himself remembering Margaret with a bittersweet warmth rather than incapacitating sorrow. Daily tasks like pruning, deadheading spent blooms, and checking for pests became acts of devotion, ways of continuing to share his life with the woman he had lost. He even began jotting notes in Margaret's old gardening notebook, adding his own observations about which fertilizers worked best and which days produced the most vibrant blooms. In a sense, he was finishing the work she had started, turning her dream of a memorial rose garden into a living reality. When the garden reached a near complete stage, Lily and Henry decided to open it to neighbors and friends as a gesture of gratitude and remembrance. They set a date on a clear summer afternoon. Lily trimmed vases full of fresh blooms to place around the yard, while Henry set out simple refreshments. He felt a mixture of anxiety and excitement swirling in his chest. It was the first time in a long while that he would host an event, but this was also a gentle celebration of Margaret's life, a tribute he believed her spirit would love. People arrived in groups, marveling at the graceful archway, inhaling the perfume of roses in full bloom. Children giggled as they scurried along the path, chasing each other around the fountain. Some guests stopped to read a small plaque Henry had placed near the arbor, engraved with Margaret's name and a short message, in gratitude for her gentle heart and abiding love. Others settled on the bench, quietly soaking in the meditative calm. At moments, Henry felt a twinge of longing for Margaret's hand in his, but that sadness was laced with hope. He sensed she was present in every petal, in every wave of fragrance carried by the breeze. When the afternoon sun reached its peak, Henry stood before the gathered visitors to share a few words. His hands trembled as he thanked everyone for their support, especially Lily for her unwavering guidance and friendship. He spoke of Margaret's unwavering passion for roses, how she believed in their power to symbolize life's endurance and capacity for renewal. Though Henry's voice cracked, he finished by saying, "This garden is for her, but it's also for every one of us who has lost someone dear. May we find comfort in the beauty of these blossoms and remember that new life always springs forth, even from sorrow." Applause followed, gentle yet heartfelt. Lily caught Henry's eye, tears glimmering in both their gazes. She stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. She echoed Henry's gratitude and shared how working on the garden had deepened her understanding that nature is not only about growth, it's about healing and transformation, each cycle of blossoms a symbol of renewal. She mentioned how she, too, found solace in the delicate emergence of new leaves after her father's passing. Even the blackest nights give way to dawn, and each winter eventually yields to spring. After the small gathering, as guests departed, Lily and Henry stood by the fountain, admiring the balmy sky tinged with watercolor shades of pink and orange. The blooming roses seemed to glow in the evening light, a silent testament to the love that had nurtured them. Henry felt emotion welling up again, but this time it was suffused with peace. He looked around at the sanctuary they had created, remembering how it started as a single fragile wish in the nursery on the day his grief felt insurmountable. Now, flowers danced in a gentle breeze, and a community found comfort within those blossoming walls. Turning to Lily, Henry whispered a quiet thank you. Lily squeezed his hand, understanding that what they shared went far beyond the simple act of planting a garden. In the following days, Henry continued to tend the roses with renewed determination. He and Lily still exchanged gardening tips and stories, but their visits had shifted to a deeper friendship, a quiet solidarity. On particularly fine afternoons, Lily would pause during her busy nursery schedule, dropping by with a new variety of rose or perhaps a packet of seeds she thought might thrive in a corner of the garden. Each addition was chosen thoughtfully, yet the true heart of the place remained Margaret's presence, flourishing among the petals. As summer breezes yielded to the first crisp edges of autumn, the memorial garden stayed vibrant. Though some of the blooms faded under cooler nights, others flourished, extending the season of color in a final flourish of nature's generosity. Henry carefully harvested the last roses, placing a few in a vase near Margaret's photo inside the house. He stood there, noticing how the rose's soft blush complemented the warmth in her eyes. In that moment, he felt that if love had a fragrance, these blooms would carry it into every corner of his home, reminding him that Margaret's spirit lived on in every memory shared, every kindness extended, and every bud that continued to unfold. And so, the humble backyard in Rosemore became more than just a garden. It became a living testament that sorrow, when met with compassion and determination, could bloom into something beautiful. Through the companionship of a young gardener and a grieving widower, hope grew from once barren ground, reminding them and all who passed through that new life could indeed blossom from the deepest ache of loss. In the company of brimming rose bushes and the calming trickle of the fountain, Henry discovered that Margaret's love would forever live in the petals that gracefully opened each season. And Lily saw anew the quiet miracle that unfolds when patient hands and a tender heart guide seeds through darkness into the healing light.